Hey guys, Droyd here with my first album review. This album review is over Born of Osiris' 2011 album, The Discovery. I know I'm a couple years late, but this album was requested to me by the Autistic Skull Demo, so shout out to him. Thanks for requesting the album. And I thought I would do this album because I have experience with it, so I thought it'd be an easy first review just so I can kind of get the feel of things and so I can see your guys' feedback. Okay, so I just want to give you guys a little background of my experience with this band. Um, I had heard of Born of Osiris ever since I started to get into heavy music, which was probably 4 or 5 years ago. I was pretty young. And I had always heard of Born of Osiris, but I never really listened to them. I never really checked them out until about a year and a half ago, like a little bit after the release of The Discovery, because there's a lot of buzz around it. Uh, I think I listened to Follow the Signs. That was the only song I listened to at first, and I wasn't a fan. I'm gonna be honest. I really didn't like it for some reason. And I went and I revisited this album probably over a year ago, and I actually started to enjoy them, and they quickly became one of my favorite deathcore bands. And I saw them twice last year. They put on an amazing live show. And yeah, so I just kind of wanted to give you guys a little knowledge of my background with the band so you know where I'm coming from. So The Discovery is Born of Osiris' second full-length album, and it was released March 22nd, 2011 via Sumerian Records. This album has no problem with length like their EP, The New Rain, did, which only clocked in at about 20 minutes, even though it had 8 songs. This album has 15 songs, and it is almost an hour long. So length is definitely not an issue anymore. This was Born of Osiris' first album to feature guitarist Jason Richardson, and in fact it was the only album to feature Jason because he moved on to Chelsea Grin after being kicked out of Born of Osiris for unknown reasons. And with the addition of Jason, who is a great guitarist, came a much more technical aspect of the band. They had always had somewhat of a technical aspect, but I feel like on The Discovery there's a lot more guitar solos and a lot more impressive guitar work in general, especially on XIV. I don't know what number that is, so I'm just going to call that track XIV. It's Roman numerals. That song has an amazing guitar solo, which goes into Behold, which is the next song. And even the drumming is very technical. Their drummer, Cameron Loesch, is a very good drummer, and I was very impressed by the drum work and the guitar work alike. So if you like technical, then this might be an album for you. Not only is it technical, it's a lot more progressive. They introduced somewhat of a progressive aspect in A Higher Place, but there are more interludes on this album, and even the lyrics are somewhat like it's kind of a concept album, which ties into the whole progressive thing, because I know lyrics don't really matter in deathcore, but the lyrics on this album, they seem to be an intellectual view of the world and about opening up your third eye and things like that. So it's a lot different from the typical kill people, fuck sluts that deathcore generally gives off. I enjoy the lyrics a lot. If you're somebody that gets into lyrics, then you might want to read these. And even if you don't, you might want to look into it. It's really interesting. Ronnie is a great lyricist, and lyrics were not an issue on this album at all. Not only did they introduce more of a progressive sound, but there's also more electronic influences. Like I said, there's a lot of interludes, like between songs and before songs, and even in the middle of songs, like on Two Worlds of Design, there's a really electronic sound, and that is partially because of their keyboardist Joe. His keyboards really come through on this album. Joe is playing most of the time. Like on the other albums, the only time you could really hear the keyboards was when it was doing like awkward transitions and stuff, but now the keyboards fit in the mix really well. They really blend with the other instruments and they sound great, and I was very impressed by Joe's keyboard work. And he makes all of his own keyboard patches, I believe, and they all sound great. There's some choirs, there's some like normal synths. I don't know, you just have to listen. The keyboards flow really well. They really are mixed well into the music. Also, something Born of Osiris greatly improved upon with this album was song structure. The songs seem to have more of a chorus and verse layout to them. I know they improved greatly upon it in A New Reign, but I feel like they really nailed down song structure in this album, and especially in songs like Follow the Signs, where there's a noticeable chorus, and actually the chorus is really good. So song structure is definitely something they nailed in this album. Also with song structure, there are still breakdowns because it is deathcore, and it's different deathcore though. It's like technical progressive deathcore. So the breakdowns, they're not just like chuggy breakdowns, they're actually pretty creative breakdowns, and I was pretty impressed. Like, they still have that punch and that brutality, but they also definitely have the Born of Osiris sound to them, if you know what I mean. The vocals. So the vocals on this album are pretty good. I mean, they're typical deathcore vocals. There's not really many gutturals. There are a few across the album and a couple songs, but it's mostly mid to low growls, a lot of mids, and high screaming coming from Ronnie. And then you have Joe's kind of yelled backing vocals, which actually blend in really well with Ronnie's vocals. So I was impressed by like their like almost kind of harmonies between the two of them. Not a band you want to listen to if you're going for amazing vocals. But if you're looking for production and good sounding music, then you definitely want to listen to this album. The album was produced completely by the band, I believe, and that's really impressive considering how young they are. And the production on this album is some of the best in deathcore, I would say. The guitars, the vocals, the bass really cuts through the mix, but everything sounds great. The only thing that I'm not a big fan of is all the drums are triggered on this album. The cymbals are mic'd, I believe. I don't think they use electronic cymbals, but in the studio video, Cameron is playing on an acoustic set and all the drums are triggered. And you can definitely tell when you listen to the album, especially if you're a drummer like I am. The drums sound really mechanical, and like there's not much of a performance and human aspect to them, and that honestly kind of bothers me. Like, the drums are the exact same volume all the way through it, but then again, this is deathcore, and heavy music in general usually doesn't have a lot of fluctuation between volume. I can't think of the word, but you know what I mean. So the drums are kind of mechanical, and that kind of bothers me, but it's not like I sit down when I listen to the album and just think, wow, these drums really are not changing volume or anything. It's something you notice if you focus on the drums, but if you don't, if you listen to the music as a whole, you really don't notice it, so it's not that big of an issue. The artwork on this album, which ties into the whole opening your third eye theme or concept of the album, is based on a piece by Cameron Gray called The Never-Ending Dreamer, and I think the art is amazing. I really like it, and probably some of my favorite album art, I would say. Not that the album art really matters so much to the music, but I just thought I would throw that in there. Look up The Never-Ending Dreamer by Cameron Gray, and you'll see where the inspiration came from for the album art. I think it's really great. This is definitely one of the best deathcore albums ever, in my opinion. Definitely one of the best albums of 2011, and I think they really nailed down everything that they really wanted to go for in the last few years that they've been making albums. I think it's everything they were going for, and this album is just all around, it's just a good album. It's good if you want something progressive, it's good if you want something technical, it's good if you want something just brutal and crushing, because there are still those Born of Osiris breakdowns, and just if you want something heavy in general, then I would definitely recommend this album. Some of my favorite songs on this album include Follow the Signs, obviously. That was like the big song for this album, I would say. Behold, the final track, and actually the track before it, XIV. Again, not sure what number that is supposed to be, but XIV is kind of a interlude, like an intro to Behold, and it's like one amazing guitar solo and some keyboard work, And Behold is extremely technical. It's an awesome song, probably my favorite Born of Osiris song ever. It's really brutal, and I think Behold just wraps this album up perfectly. It's everything on the album in one song, basically. I also like Regenerate. That also sums this album up pretty well. There's a lot of melodic aspects. It's a really heavy song, so I really enjoy Regenerate. Two Worlds of Design, I know a lot of people don't like this track because it's kind of a slower one, but it really shows off the electronic aspect of this album, I think. Like, just the whole second half of the album is a lot of like electronics and keyboards and stuff like that. And I actually saw that song performed live for the first time, and I really like Two Worlds of Design as well. So this is a really great album. Once again, I think Born of Osiris really nailed everything they were going for. And overall, I would give the album a 9 out of 10. I would recommend it for fans of deathcore, for fans of progressive metal, fans of technical kind of deathcore, and this is just a great album if you're a fan of heavy music in general. So that's my review of Born of Osiris's The Discovery. I hope you enjoyed. Leave a comment and maybe recommend some albums you want me to review in the future. Once again, I am Droid, or Sean, whatever you want to call me, and I will see you guys next time.